And now we go back to cinema and we talk the penguin lessons. Sharon, it is your moment. You've been waiting for this. Tell us about the penguin lessons.
Yes, this is I saw this on preview. This is a film about a middle-aged man, Steve Coogan, who is a teacher, and he gets a job teaching English at a prestigious private boys' school in Argentina.
Hmm.
Um, Fine, but this is 1976, and he gets there basically just as there's a military coup.
Mm.
And because everything's a little bit uncomfortable, they close the school down for a week. And so he decides to take himself on holiday while everything settles down. And he goes to a neighboring country, Uruguay. And whilst they're sort of trying to pick up ladies and, do a bit of smooching, walking on the beach one day, they encounter this oil slick and they find sort of, ensnared in this oil slick, a penguin that is still alive. So trying to impress this lady, he rescues this penguin and cleans it up, and thinking he's just gonna sort of put it back in the sea as soon as it's cleaned up again. But this penguin won't leave him, and it basically imprints itself on him and adopts him. And then everything he tries to do to get rid of this penguin fails. So he ends up taking this penguin back to the school with him. And you then see how I think events of his past. This sort of penguin is like a catalyst for change in his life,
Hmm.
in the life of the school, and the life of the people around him. And it makes him sort of, in some ways, you find out his backstory. And there's a reason why he's the way he is. He's a little bit of an indifferent teacher. He's not that engaged with his students. He's not that engaged with the school. And you get the feeling that he's a middle-aged man, but he's still somehow drifting through life. And you do find out why. And this penguin is just a catalyst for change, and you understand why. And he opens in his as part of this change, he starts to become a little bit more aware of the world around him, and the fact that in this coup, that it isn't just the big bods, fighting it out, and he's just allowed to get on with his life. It touches him personally when one of the people he's got to know in the school, one of the sort of people who's a member of the staff, becomes one of the disappeared, and he
Mm.
becomes engaged with the family of this young person, this young woman, and it sort of makes him more aware of the world around him and the sort of the political events in the time. So that's basically in a nutshell.
Yes.
I think this is one of those films that it would so easily become sentimental and mawkish. Because as
Yes.
soon as you pop a penguin in anything, you go, "Oh, it's a penguin," and they are just inherently just like, "Oh."
Yeah,
But I think,
yes. I was gonna say, especially because the plot of this film sounds superficially similar to Mr. Popper's Penguins, which was a Jim Carrey
yeah,
vehicle.
yeah. Well, he ends up with, yeah. So it's not at all. I think it just steers that fine line between sentiment and sort of empathy and sort of real compassion, and I think it steered that line really well, because it's so easy when you have any animal involved that it just becomes a device.
Mm.
And I think this, yeah, I thought they just did it very well. It's based on a memoir, apparently inspired by true events. So you don't know how much of it is actually
Yeah.
true,
Yeah.
but it's inspired by a memoir that this gentleman wrote about his experiences in Argentina during the coup, and the fact that he did end up adopting this penguin. But so I thought it was done really sympathetically. All the characters were on point. Steve Coogan, he can sort of, I think it's because he's a comedian. He can be almost like transformative, can't he? He can.
Yeah.
You lose Steve Coogan because we don't really know him. We know him through the characters that he's played.
Yeah.
So you see him as this. You can see how this man is sort of disillusioned, and he has been drifting through life. Jonathan Pryce, he's the headmaster of this English boys' school. It's basically an English boys' school in Argentina.
Yeah.
So based on a classic education, where they teach English, they teach these sciences, they teach sort of art, Latin, and the languages and stuff. So they want to give these boys like an English education, but it's in the middle of Argentina in a military coup. So there's things to play there, and a lot of the people who work in the school, the janitorial staff and some of the people who work in sort of like the groundskeepers and some of the delivery people are all people who live there. They're like the locals,
Yeah.
and how their lives are so different. And you see the contrast between their lives and the lives of the people whose children go to this school of privilege, and the teachers who live in this sort of a privileged environment.
I'm getting a real weird blender mix of films here, because I'm getting like an octopus teacher mixed with the holdovers, mixed in with I'm Still Here.
Yeah. There's probably elements of all of those things, because it's sort of taking, and looking at a serious, adding a light-hearted touch to a serious, sort of serious instance, and doing it with real compassion and sort of pathos. So I actually really enjoyed it, and more than I thought it'd be. I thought it was going to just be more comedic than it was. I think there's definitely humour in it.
Yeah.
But it sort of, for me, because I keep using the same word, but it did steer clear of that sentimentality that will make it sickly. And so for me, it avoided that. But I thought it had real sort of compassion and real emotion. And there's some scenes in it, I was just like, oh yeah, that I felt that. So no, I really liked it. So I would give that a 4-star from me. I actually really enjoyed it.
4-star. Yeah, it does. It went from the poster and not from the poster, from the trailer and all that. It looked little bit like Steve Coogan in Philomena mode.
Yes, I think it's probably more in that sort of. Yeah, there's humour in it, but it's also underlying it. There's heart.
Okay, Philomena. Never mind.
Philomena.
Philomena. All right. Okay, cool. And now we go